Hey everybody, I just wanted to talk to you guys today about free-to-play games, also known as addiction as a business model. So it's amazing that it took video games a long time to come back around to this business model. Now you may think that, this might be a newer thing or a unique thing, but when video games were not on phones, before they were a box connected to a television in your living room, video games used to be that exclusive plaything to kind of like the PC market. You had discs that were being physically distributed on magazines. Games were sold through limited retailers, computer stores, that sort of thing. There were a few innovators in there that kind of sought to expand the audience and get gaming a little bit more wide. One of those companies back in the day was Apogee Entertainment, and they devised what was the shareware business model. That was pretty cool. They would kind of license the biggest, hottest titles that were coming from, great programmers and designers and get them to carve the game up into little slices. They'd give you this first slice for free. And once you play through about 10-20% of the game, they figured that you'd be enamored with this huge demo that would convert you into a paying customer. They didn't have to rely on a retail storefront, and they could, order without actually setting foot inside of a brick and mortar place. This was way before, the conventional internet that we had today. However, somewhere along the lines, shareware kind of died out, and game demos have remained. But if you've ever worked in games, you know that making game demos is awful. A game demo is not just like taking a slice out of a finished product. Generally speaking, when you make a demo, a whole bunch of your dev team gets split off into from the main branch of the game, and they work exclusively on just the demo. Now, you'd think that we could take all of that stuff and just put it into the game, but reality says that some of the changes, some of the upgrades, some of the content from the demo will actually just be abandoned there. It'll be throwaway work. Now it's costly, but it's not as costly as not having something for someone to play if they're at a Gamescom or what was E3 or even trade shows. You want the user to get hands-on to start building hype. Now, there are less demos than there were before. Big AAA titles can often go out with just a few reviews and a massive marketing spend. I'm looking at EA, I'm looking at CD Projekt. A lot of these games, they're just built off of the backs of their reputation. They don't even bother with demos a lot of the time. So while this is all happening, mobile exploded, right? Phone games have become synonymous with the industry. They earn, they make bank. The first generation of mobile titles, what they had was a lack of competition in their space, right? You thinking back in the early days of the app stores, you didn't have to work as hard. And so they could regularly charge $5 or $10 for these basic crappy games because that was all you had available. However, just like anything in the games industry, as the space expanded, standing out from the crowd became pretty damn hard, right? Someone realized that if you go back to that shareware model of giving away a chunk of the game up front, you can get installs. In mobile space, there's a captive market or storefront, right? And so things that are trending, things that more people are downloading, that matters. So if a game is free, first and foremost, and second, good or fun to play, it does begin to snowball. It does gain momentum. There's reasons why Candy Crush, is a game that everybody knows. There's reason why Fortnite is a game that everybody knows. If you have something and you've given it away and people start playing and playing and playing, the companies begin to understand that you make more money actually giving away a game for free. Okay, so now there's all these free games flooding the market. They're pushing the paid games by the wayside because who would pay $5 for a game if you can get something for nothing and get a lot of enjoyment, a lot of play out of it? So now we on the inside, we as the developers, we hear terms like conversion rates and daily active users and all these buzzwords and phrases. For a long time, I kind of avoided working on stuff in the mobile and free-to-play space. Part of that was I didn't at the time have the specific skill sets that would take me there. And the other half was that there wasn't a lot of opportunity for that in my area, my expertise. Eventually, though, I did end up working on a free to play title. It was by the name of Need for Speed World. After a while of figuring out what was going on, this actually became one of my favorite video game projects I've ever worked on. It's also the one where I have stuff that I am the most proud of in my career, and also stuff where I am the most embarrassed by in my career. I loved working on that game because I've made some great friends with her, and I worked with one of my best buddies from games, Vinod Raju. He is an amazing, talented artist. He and myself were the car team for that game. We joined post launch, like I talked about in the last video, content created after the game has shipped. So we were the content team or a strike force, and we would brainstorm, what cars would be a good fit to release in a week, what could we do for them, what could we modify with them, that sort of thing. Vinod is easily one of, if not the best hard surface artist I've ever worked with, and we did a lot of crazy work on that project. I'm really proud of how we helped to grow the game as part of that team. The designers would add things like game modes and races and events and seasons and things like that, and we would fill out the content. We would create stuff to leverage their new toys. When they brought drag mode in, we had a slew of new cars that would fit into that genre, into that style. I loved all the creative freedom that we had, right? We were our own directors, we were our own producers, our own managers. We got to do a lot of stuff completely unchecked as long as we produced, right? If we made stuff and it sold, we had as much freedom as we could have. Now, here's the part where I was a little bit embarrassed. One of the things was I got to design my ultimate dream cars, right? So from Koenigsegg's to McLaren's, from tuners and drag cars and drift cars, whatever I wanted. But behind the scenes, we had a monetization team, and they really wanted to limit test the player base. Now, if you don't know what limit testing is, what I mean is how much could they possibly charge for a digital item in our game and really make money at it? It's a dumb question. We could be a profitable game charging as little as $5 a car. We had a great big user base. People were willing to convert to pay $5 to get their favorite thing because the game was free. So it was something that the players desired, right? However, as with the real world, exclusivity and rarity is this cruel mistress. The top tier players want to be unique. They want to stand out. And so we devised what would become known as the elite line of cars in that game. Now, the people in the monetization part, they wanted to see if we could get away with charging $100 for a single car. And sadly, we did, right? We did a short introductory discount of 25% at launch, right? Because if you put something on sale, people think they perceive that value. So what we did was we launched out with a Koenigsegg CCX, and I got to design extreme wide body kit for it, livery, completely changed that car. Coolest part, thing that I'm most proud of is, all of these designs had to go in front of their makers. So when I designed that Koenigsegg, Christian von Koenigsegg had to sign off on it. He had to be like, that looks cool. So when that came back first pass as like, yeah, I love it, that was, the world to me. Like the fact that one of my automotive heroes gave the thumbs up to my design. Everything that we did there, everything on that was amazing. The thing that irked me though was we had just engineered a third tier of player. There's the free players in a free-to-play game that never spend a dime, and that's fine. The games industry doesn't want to say this, but we need the free players because they populate the servers. Our general regulars, the people who spend, the people who convert, they probably spent something like $20 on their lifetime US dollars, and that's fine. But we had just created this third tier, these mega whales, the ones that would spend hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on this, free to play game. Now, there's going to be a lot of free players out there that just have all this hate and all this anger towards these whales, these big spenders. But I want to tell you guys, one of these big spenders pays to keep the server running for thousands of free players. So if they weren't playing in there, then nobody would be playing anywhere. And the other side of that was in that game and in a lot of free to play games, it's not pay to win, right? So for us, yeah, you were buying a crazy fast car, and yeah, it was cool, but it also took a lot of skill to drive these crazy hypercars because they were very fast and they would turn very hard. And so a good free player in those games could get their free car, move it up, mod it up, class it up, and actually hang and compete with them. So why do these whales exist? Why do they exist in free-to-play games, buying these, the $1,000 gold-plated skins and all these stupid things? It's distinction. It's standing out. It's to be different, right? You want to differentiate yourself from a noob. You want to differentiate yourself from anybody else. Did it work? Yes, insanely well. The first car, the Koenigsegg that we made, quickly grossed over $1 million, right? You think about the return on that investment for a games company. It took me 3 days to design it. It cost Vinod probably a couple of weeks on the build side. It cost 1 or 2 software engineers afternoon to integrate it. A little bit more design work, and then probably had a marketing person work on it for a day to generate some interest, and then I would write the copy for it. When you think about that cost, maybe $10,000, maybe $20,000, return on investment over $1 million. It was definitely worth it. It was a huge runaway success. What do you learn when something is a huge success? You learn you should do that again and again and again. So we would repeat it several more times. We would hit different price points. We would hit different categories of car, right? We did it a whole bunch of times. Now, why am I going on about it? Well, this whole thing that we were doing was actually just a big experiment. This wasn't something that was meant to succeed. This was something to be a data mine, right? And it wasn't just us on the Need for Speed franchise that were going to benefit from this data. It was owned by Electronic Arts. So everything that we were doing was being used to see how free-to-play would fit into EA. Now, you can argue all you want. You can argue till the cows come home. But the fact of the matter is that Electronic Arts is a big company. And all of this stuff would come to a head a few years later. And everybody knows this game, I think. Star Wars Battlefront 2. This release was kind of the shot heard around the world because the backlash from that debacle, when it hit mainstream, it hit news. It resulted in stuff in legislation in Europe and several nations regarding gambling, loot boxes, all this other stuff. Would it have been that big of a deal if the game had have launched for free? I would argue no. But EA did what EA do. They charged you $80 for the game, and then someone worked out that if you wanted to fully unlock all the content, you would spend $400 on the game. It's ridiculous. Now, what I worked on wasn't a loot box. You were literally buying a product. You would go into the store, you would see the thing that you wanted, you'd know what it costs, you'd pay your money, you knew what you're getting. On Battlefront, they had loot boxes, loot crates. I know that they don't like that name, but that's what they are. Loot crates or gacha mechanisms. Gacha is sinister in nature. They prey upon this, instinctual rush of risk, of chance. And what it is it feeds into creating an addiction, right? It literally is gambling. The reason I hate free-to-play is because of the loot boxes, the loot crates, chasing, right? You're always chasing something, trying to get the one rare object. At least when we did it, you could just buy the rare object and be on your way. The dirty ways that companies kind of exploit the players. Like I said, I love the business model because I get all these great free game experiences. Valorant, Fortnite, all these other huge, mega successful free to play games. I just like the fact that on most of these, like even Overwatch, right? You want a skin, you buy a skin. You want this, you buy this. But when you get into the loot crate part of it, I don't care for that. All right. Now, I'm going to end this off with a question for all of you guys. Do you love or do you hate free to play? Why or why not? So I want you guys to sound off in the comments below and let me know how you feel about it. I'm sure that there's nobody right in the middle. I'm sure that, you're very polarized about your free to play titles. Are you one of the big payers, or are you a freeloader? Are you the person like me that plays for free for a while, and then once you've gotten some value, I start to invest, right? I will gladly pay for games that I'm enjoying. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap this up here. If you've gotten this far in the video, please comment, drop a like, hit subscribe, tell a friend, tell an enemy, I don't care. Share this around so that we can all have fun. And as always, I'm going to do my best to respond to any comments down below. Stay safe and happy gaming, everybody.